Yeah, very good morning, everybody. First of all, I need to thank the MCA team, especially Bernard and Alistair and his team, this tiny team. As last year I told you, you are nearly on the international level, but this year you hit the point. You are on the international level, highly professional, what I've seen here. It's nearly similar like me making a James Bond movie. The difference is you have a tiny team, they have 500 people there. We're just missing some maybe Aston Martins, some stuntmen, some rockets whatsoever, but it's really cool. And maybe some bad guys, as we are all just good guys. So it's really a compliment. I'm really happy to see that. So I want to tell you not a lot, but something, in my opinion, which is very important regarding our culture in Europe. So let's start with my first slide. Do you like it? It looks very pretty. Everything is blooming. It's spring. It's fresh. It's positive. Sun is shining. I would say that's a huge success of the nature. But what is wrong with it? Any idea? What's wrong with it? It will not stay forever, as we have seasons. Seasons mean the winter will come. Nothing in life has just success. Have you ever failed? I did, and I do every day. And it's normal. And it's also normal that we fail if we see our kids, or maybe in the meantime I have grandkids as well. It's normal. You learn walking, you fall down. You get up. You are learning speaking. You make mistakes. You are going to school. You learn maths. You have your problems. Maybe you succeed. It's a constant up and down. So even the life is not just linear. The life has always this kind of curves, this so-called sigmoid curves. So even in business, if you, as a startup, whatsoever, you start something, you have your idea, and you want to bring it to a life, to a success, you start somewhere, you invest all the best intentions, your best skills, all your effort day and night to make it happen, and to get, hopefully, a success. But you never know whether it will be a success or it will not be a success. And the thing is, once you have, in business, learned to deal with success and failure, success and failure, success and failure, which is just normal, you learn, it's a gift. You learn how you can improve, how you can involve a business and what is working, what is not working. And so you become then an excellent, maybe it's called second curve. You see these curves. You have one curve, the product line is going down. You create in the right time the next product or service. It's going up and up and up. And one of the so far best second curves I've ever met and worked with was Steve Jobs. You know the story of Apple. He always invented the next and the next and the next products, and at the end, yeah, it's the most expensive company we have on the market. But even Steve Jobs said once, the best thing that happened in his life was that they fired him from his own company, as you know. And then he had to start from scratch, and later on they asked him to come back, and we all know the story. But what is the thing in Europe compared to the US with failure? Failure is never convenient, never comfortable, never nice, especially if you fail as an entrepreneur, meaning you crash the company, whether for what reason ever. you have an insolvency, or even you lose then everything and have a bankruptcy. It's not convenient. It's for sure not nice. It's nothing you would beg for. But it's happening. And it's happening every day, thousands of times around the world. But when you fail as an entrepreneur in the US, for example, as they see it as God's own country, they say, okay, you have had bad luck, sorry for that. Start from scratch. They encourage you to do it again. And even if you have a lot of debts because you risked a lot, you had some bank loans, however, you cannot repay, and you have to file for bankruptcy. In the US, you are discharged within 60 to 90 days, really, and you press the button, so to speak, and you start from scratch. But what is happening in Europe? If you fail to this extent, first of all, most of the European countries don't have a bankruptcy law, so you are on the hook for 30 years. And if they have a bankruptcy law, then it's 3 to 7 years until you are getting discharged, not 60 to 90 days. And I have made myself all this experience. So what will happen if this happens to you? After being discharged after 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years or never, more or less, your entrepreneurial life is over. Would you be encouraged to start again? For sure not. And you are stigmatized in Europe, and they will even see you or call you a loser. And the next thing is you are not getting a second chance. They will not grant you a second chance. In the United States, as I mentioned, it's completely different. So, what is the outcome? There is the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, this time the 18th annual report. And if you have a look at it, you will see there's an index called fear of failure. That means people between the age of 18 and 64 years who think they are able to start a business, they have a good idea, they think they have the capability to become an entrepreneur and so on, but are scared, frightened to start a business. That's the fear of failure index. And if you look to this statistic, which covers 2/3 of the GDP in the world, so 160 countries, this research is made in this analysis. So no wonder that we in Europe have a very high percentage of this fear of failure, meaning that so many people don't like to start a company because they are frightened that they fail and then they lose everything, and it's even very hard for a family to come up again. In the US, if you know you fail, they say, okay, it was bad luck, just start again. And you get discharged in 60 to 90 days. Of course, 90 days, you are not frightened to restart again. You will do it. It's also not nice and not comfortable, but that's it. And if you look to the very big stories in America, in the US, you see so many highly successful entrepreneurs. They failed before they get their huge success 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, including Bill Gates, including the founders from LinkedIn, including the founders of PayPal, or look to Ford, Ford company. Mr. Ford started 2 companies as car manufacturer. They failed. The third was successful, and so on and so on. But here in Europe, we don't have that, and that's the big problem. And in the aspect now, when we see that all the ecosystems are growing now, and they are working on a global scale together, because that's the future of entrepreneurship. You are not just a single company. You are sooner or later a part of a complete web of an ecosystem, whether you are friends or enemies. I call them the frenemies, working together. You never know in this chain of cooperation in these ecosystems whether one will fail. Why not? But if this is something where you say, before I start a partnership, I need to know that this one is not failing because it's an ecosystem, then you will never have an ecosystem, because there is always some risk that someone will fail, or the business idea will fail, or a business model will fail. So you should just encourage everybody. And it starts from the very beginning with our kids in the school. That we think like we think in Europe might have to do with our history of mind compared to the States. But if you don't encourage your kids, try and fail, try and fail, try and fail again and again and again, you are just not creating the right culture to compete on a global basis. And that's what I'm worried now, seeing Europe, especially in the digital area and era. There's no surprise why the 7 digital giants are not in Europe. There are 6 of them in the States, and 1 of them, Denskant, is in China, but none in Europe. So we need to change this culture of failure, especially in Europe, to be able, on a global competition, to be as strong as possible against America, so to speak, against China, against India, and whatever is coming within the next decade and decades. It's so important, also for the innovation. I meet so often people, they have excellent ideas, but they just are not able, or they don't want to start because of the risk their companies. And so we kill or limit ourselves in Europe very, very much, and this we shouldn't do. What is the solution? The solution is that, on the one hand, politics and even governments can do a lot to change the legal framework, more or less in the same attitude like in the US, I would recommend. That's one thing. But everything starts with ourselves. If we are not accepting and teaching people and encourage them to fail and restart, grant them the next chance and the next chance and the next chance, we shouldn't really be surprised why we in Europe are not as competitive, for example, in the digital area as the US, or even in the meantime, I would say, China. So that's the most important thing. We should start with our kids, in the schools, in the universities, in our families, in our companies, with friends, with colleagues, to not just tolerate failure, because, you know, tolerating is so nice thing. Okay, I tolerate that you fail. How could you? Come on. You have to accept it. It's a normal part, and you never know what will happen. And the very good news is, if you fail, even if you have a really tough failure, like bankruptcy, believe me, it's always an enormous chance to restart, and new doors of many opportunities and possibilities are opening up. It's a new chance, with all the learning curve of the 360 degrees of entrepreneurship, to start something new. And you always can improve. You should, of course, it's harsh when it happens, it's tough, but just embrace failure. Believe me, that's a key for the survival of our economies in the future. And as you may know, I had this 21 years very successful with my company, success, and then short before the stock exchange, the IPO, there was a hostile takeover attempt from my partner, failed, and I lost all my 100 millions I had made. Bankrupt for a year, no income, nothing. I had to restart from scratch. But last year, for example, my turnover with my colleagues and businesses was $17.8 billion. This year, we are already by 21-something billion, so we'll end up even more, you know? So if I wouldn't have failed, I wouldn't have get these new chances, and my quality of life is just so much better. And I really recommend you fail as often as possible. Learn. You can never learn a lot from winning, but from failing, you even get and can create some wisdom. And that's what I would really strongly recommend. Accept it, encourage everyone, embrace failure, and see it as a huge advantage in the worldwide and the global competition to survive for us, for our next generations, for the whole continent. Thank you very much.